everyone. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox, and I'm here to remind you that this is the best season of your life. It is the best season of your life because we are in an era of self discipline. We are in an era of conscious self awareness. We're becoming consciously aware of who we are, and we are being intentional in our lives. Not only that, but we are also discovering that we are the ones that will create the life that we want. You can't wait for someone to do it for you. You can't wait for something to happen from the outside in. No, it is something that we create. And to me, it's fascinating because as I go through this journey of self-discovery, learning more about myself and, the things I like, excuse me, who I am, what are the things that motivate me, inspires me, encourage me, and it's a place where I come to desire clarity in my life. And that word gets thrown around so often, and sometimes people think it's being confident or being assertive, but clarity is not that. Clarity has to do with how you move. It has to do with your focusing on the things that matters and the things that don't matter, eliminating those things that don't matter, and then you move accordingly. It's what you do next based on those two criterias: focusing on what matters to you and subtracting the things that do not matter to you at this point in your life. And then what's left? What are you going to do about that? Clarity is like clean perception. You see things clearly and you want to acknowledge it for what it is. I had a personal experience in my life this week, or I think it was last week. Regardless, the point is, as I am journeying through this experience of remembering and discovering, going back to my original blueprint, focusing on my manuscript and not on things that were imposed upon me, things that I was programmed to believe and conditioned to trust external influences and indoctrination that's been embedded into me. And I'm getting rid of all that and I'm becoming clear about it. And one of the things that came up, most of you that have followed my show, that I share that there was a time that I was a religious person. I was into religion, Christianity, and I was like a dogmatic person, believed everything and really did not exercise any critical thinking, even though deep down on the inside, I had questions. But the way the system is set up, you don't really ask those questions to anyone outside of yourself. And when you're in that environment, you're really not prone to think outside of what's been taught, because what's been taught, it's repetitive. You hear the same thing over and over and over and over, and that's the way indoctrination stays, and it becomes believable and so forth. So when I left that whole belief system, because came a point where I needed my own. I needed to see my own manuscript, and I did not want to be guided by the opinions, the views, and the perception of other people, regardless of who they are. So I left religion, and that was about 17 years ago. And here I am journeying through life, trying to discover, or moving to discover who I am. And it's been really a blast because my life has really become phenomenal, in terms of me being me. And, I discovered the type of person I am, my personality, my attributes, my characteristics, and I like that person that I have met. And but there's this whole idea that that's been thrown around when you leave the religious arena, the religious platform, that we are not. People would say, "Well, I'm not religious. I'm spiritual." And I really never paid attention to that. It's not something that I said because, I just kind of like put it on the shelf. And something came up, and which made me question. And I knew I had to delve into it because I needed to know anything that I have to question, especially concerning myself. So I got to asking myself, if I say I am a spirit being, I am spiritual, I'm a spiritual agent, uh, experiencing a human, living a human experience. I'm spiritual, living a human experience, having a human experience. And I got to question, if I said that, what exactly does that mean? What exactly does that mean? First of all, what does it mean to me? Because that's the important part. If somebody were to ask me that, what would I say? What would be my answer, my explanation, my definition? Would it make sense to me? Because one of the things that I don't want to do is to find myself uh, leaving one set of programming, conditioning, indoctrination, and getting into another type. It's just another type coated with a different or painted with a different brush. I don't want that. I want to go back, and it's been working for me. Go back to my authentic self. And I encourage you to do the same, because I'm telling you, there is a sense of freedom and truth and worth and honor and value. You look at yourself totally different, and courage. And with that comes, prosperity, abundance, and all the things that we desire. It brings clarity. Remember, clarity, you have to focus on the things that you want, and then eliminate the things that do not matter. And then you move toward what's remaining. It's like subtracting the things from your life that don't matter. And sometimes that can be a challenge, but once you start subtracting relationships, attitude, behaviors, thought patterns, anything, habits, anything that does not matter, that is not working in your life right now, then you start subtracting. And then you determine it's clean perception. Your perception about yourself, about life, about situation becomes clear. So I was seeking that clarity when it had to do with uh, that whole ideology about you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the more I got to think of it, I thought, what is a spiritual being, or what is spirituality? And I have used spirituality, but then, of course, I'm doing a deep dive because I need to know. And if it's something that resonates with me, then I need to make it work. I need to see it working for me. I'm sharing this with you, and I'm excited because I'm sure you have a lot to share with me as well. When it comes to your own life and the things that are changing in your life. And we're going to get to touch on some of the things that you've shared. I know some of you are going through a little struggle with survival mode, living in survival mode. And that's no bueno, because then there's no freedom, there's no joy, there's no peace. Is you're just trying to stay above water, and that's not a way to live. So anyway, so I started thinking, what is being spiritual? And then I thought, okay, I do not subscribe to religion, to any religion. I do not subscribe to any deity. I do not subscribe to any form of worship. I do not subscribe to any of that. So, what makes me spiritual? And then I come to realize there's nothing spiritual about me. Because when I get with myself, what you may call, or, other people that are, religious called prayer. When I get with myself, I don't really call it prayer. I just call it tapping into my intuition, because that's where I get answers. It's really interesting. That's where, when I come into myself and I sit with myself and I allow my mind to think, I focus on whatever the issue is. If it's something that I want, if it's an attitude that I am, focusing on, a behavior, a discipline, a pattern that I want to change, I focus on that, the why, and what's not working anymore, or what could work anymore, and what I am going to do about it. And I just sit with myself, and those thoughts, I begin to think critically. I begin to think logically. I begin to think in a way where I can, where it would resonate with me, what would make sense. And there's nothing spiritual about that, because to me, spirituality has to do with connection with a deity, or, it's like, a friend of mine, we were talking, and she's not spiritual either. And she said, well, I don't believe in a deity, but I know there's something out there that, that influences whatever. And I thought that was interesting, but that's not me. I don't even spend time thinking there's something out there. No, that's not me. When the moon is hung at night, I know that it gives us light. Who's hung the moon? I don't really care. And it's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. The moon is there. It was there when I came, and it will be there after I leave. The sun comes up, it rises, and it sets at night. Who's done that? In all honesty, my friend, I don't really care. Again, it's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. I think it's great. But I don't spend my life thinking of things like that. I don't, the rain comes down. Now, the things that science can prove to us. That, science has proven that, we can go to the moon. We can, there's certain things that are tangible, like myself. As a matter of fact, if one were to say, I know that I'm fully human, and I have moments of spiritual experiences. That's not me. But if the other way around would make better sense for people that are driven by some kind of spirituality, because your humanity is what you know, is what you see, is what I can feel, touch, hear, smell. That is what I know. That is what is present in my life. It's demonstrable evidence, empirical evidence that I exist, that I know. Now, the spiritual part, when somebody say we are spiritual beings, what exactly is that? And how does that affect you? Now, to say that means nothing to me, because I know that when I get with myself in a form of meditation, it's not something mystical or esoteric or something magical. No, it's me with my thoughts. And then sometimes I feel the thing that I am thinking about. And then there's emotion that then is exhibited. Those things are real to me. Call me a realist. That's okay. Those are the things that are real to me. When I want something, when I desire to have something. I had this conversation with my husband yesterday or last night, and And he saw. He saw because he was present. Something that I had shared, and he saw how it unfolded in real life. Something that one would think, "Oh my gosh, are you for real? Do you really want that? Can you know?" But it unfolded, and we were talking about, in life, we get so hung up on wealth and riches and all that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But life is not about that, my friend. Life is not just about money and wealth. And we were saying that your biggest currency is favor. Your biggest currency is favor. And there is so much truth associated with that because, I pointed out to him, a situation where we experience, I go in and, you need to know what you are, what's your leverage, for me, it's like, my smile, I'm going to go in, I'm going to smile and kindness, respect, all those attributes. Those are leverage that you have in life, and it draws people in. You need to know what yours is. What are the things? What's your magic? What is your magic? If you start thinking about yourself and not depending on outside influences to give you the things that you want or to resolve problems or whatever, you need to start focusing on yourself. Once you understand, my friend, that you are a magnificent creative being, then you will start acting that way. You will start behaving that way. Remember, clarity is focusing on the things that matter, subtracting the things that don't matter, and then it's how you move toward the remaining things. It's how you move. You will move with precision. You won't hesitate. You won't procrastinate. You won't, and it doesn't mean perfection. It means that you are moving with precision. And yes, of course, you say that, with that comes confidence. Well, yeah, but clarity is not confidence because you have to have those, you have to have the focus first. What is it that you want? What is it that you desire? What is it that you are expecting, hoping for, dreaming of? And why are you waiting? There's no need to wait. Even if you are waiting, you can enjoy the journey. Even in the midst of waiting, you can enjoy the journey. I know, there's a time when I was expecting something and once it aligns in my mind, that's it. There is no escape. Because my understanding is, and what I know of myself, and again, you can read your own manuscript, you can read your own blueprint and discover what works for you. But once I get something into my mind, my system, this is what I want. This is the life I want. This is what I hope for. I wish for. This is what I desire. In my mind, what I know is that if I dared to desire it, if I dared to desire that thing, it's because it's already mine. It's because it's already mine. And it's just waiting for me to align with it. And when I talk about the universe, it's not like the universe is bringing something to me. And I know that I have said things like, the universe does not discriminate. Well, it's not the universe giving you things. The point is, I contain the universe. And everything that I desire is within the universe, my universe, your universe, and it will work for you once you understand how it works. And it's not something that I have to believe because, again, when you believe something, it's generally somebody else's experience, somebody else's take, somebody else's, thought, their manuscript, their blueprint. This work. That's why I'm sharing with you. It's not what works for me. I'm just telling you what works for me, but you have it in you. You are a magnificent creative being. You have it in you. You can create. You can create the life you desire. You can create your emotions. I was reading the other day and somebody said happiness is a skill. And I never saw it that way. And it sounded good, but I haven't quite explored it yet. All I know is I value that. I treasure being happy all the time. And so I start kind of like figuring like what does that mean, and how do you develop that skill of happiness. And sometimes when you have a situation that you're going through, just take a moment and smile for like 5 seconds. Just smile, and you would see how dopamine is released into your system. That's the hormone of joy, happiness, and contentment, and so forth. It's like a burst of dopamine is released within you when you just smile. And I do that a lot. Sometimes, at night when I am, laying in bed waiting to, get to sleep, and I have these thoughts, and sometimes I just smile. I just smile because they're good thoughts. They're thoughts of life and fun and prosperity and abundance and all of that. And thought maybe of something that's happening, or thoughts of something that we are experiencing. I just smile. I just smile. And as I smile, sometimes, if I make a noise, and my husband, he would be like, "Are you awake?" He's like, "What's funny?" and and I'm like, "No, I'm fine, honey. I'm fine." Because and it just keeps me happy. The thoughts that you ruminate in your mind, those are the things that brings happiness. But again, happiness is a skill. I like that, because if it's a skill, any skill you can learn it. And it sure beats being sad. So now, going back to clarity, so this whole idea about being a spiritual being having a human experience, I debunk that, because there is no scientific proof, there's no empirical proof that is so, that we are spiritual beings. And you know what? As a matter of fact, I I checked it out. And I always because I know that uh, religious doctrine is created by man, just man. And first, it was because of political influence and not spiritual. It was political. The Roman Empire. They wanted to get everyone. They wanted to get everyone to comply and under what they needed to keep control, and control of the population. And I know that. So they got together, the Council of Nicaea, and then they decided we're going to keep this set of information, that set of information. So it was created by man. So ever since I researched that and came to find out that is so, and of course influenced me to just walk away, because I don't want to be influenced by your thoughts or your beliefs, unless it resonates with me, and unless I can uh, find some answers that resonates with me. So I went to look up that whole thing. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And And I did some, I'm like, who came up with that? Because that didn't just show up. Someone came up with it. Someone came up with it. And what it is really, it's um, this guy, his name is Pierre Tilhard de Chardin. And he was a French aristocrat. And he was a Jesuit priest in the Catholic, you know, discipline, Catholic Church. And he was attempting to reconcile religion with science and created this philosophical narrative, which has not been proven true. As a matter of fact, they did not allow him to publish anything in the Catholic publication about that because it wasn't anything that was proven. But then you come to find out that it was just someone that created that, someone that said that. If they would have said, we are fully human, and then we have spiritual experiences for those of you that believe in, in a deity and in all of that, then I could, that would make sense because at least you are human. But to say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that's philosophical because there is nothing to prove or to assert or to determine that we are spiritual beings. First of all, what exactly is that? And you see, that's now I have clarity when it comes to that. I can focus on my humanity. And the more I think of it, I respect myself for questioning that. Not only questioning that, but doing a deep dive, checking it out, researching to find out. Because if that were the case, then I would need to know what it is and why am I considered a spiritual being having a human experience. I respect myself for that. I admire myself for that, for doing that. Why? Because it brings clarity to me. The more you look, the more cobwebs you can remove from your mind, from your thoughts, from your, from your computer, things that no longer work. It's like, I don't need to hear that anymore. And if I do, now, if that's what you believe, I respect that for you. But no one really tried to impose it upon me. It's just something that I've heard, and people that I respect even say that, and I give it some thought and so forth. But it came to a point where I was questioning it. Why? Because now I am questioning everything in my life. I need to question everything. Why? Because I want to know. The more I know about Cynthia, the more I know about moi, the better performance. It's like the more you know about your computer, your car, or anything that's, IT related, the better performance you'll get. Why? Because you know the ins and out, you know the why, the who, the where, the how, the what of who you are. And so when you hear something, you can say, no, 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 no. That's not for me. That's for you, and I respect that, but it's not for me. My friend, there is no need to be in survival mode. There is no need to be in survival mode. Survival mode is caused by traumatic experiences. And I know, and trauma is, of course, subjective, because two people could have had the same experiences as a child, but it affects each person differently. And people go to therapy and they go through healing and shadow work and things of that nature in order to free themselves, to release, to, you have to confront the trauma and dissect it and understand it so that you can release it from your life. But what trauma does is it keeps you in survival mode. And survival mode is fight or flight. It's almost like you feel like you have to protect yourself. You have to hang on to this. You have to, stay in a place of comfort, in a place that feels secure. Stay in your same community, your same church, your same job, regardless. Why? Because it feels safe. If you leave, you don't think, even if you have skills or you're qualified to do something else, you don't dare leave. Why? Because you're safe and secure over here. You feel safe and secure over here. And you don't dare think that you can leave because you're afraid of lack, trauma. Let's say, for instance, you've grown up with a mom and a dad that argued all the time about money, about things, you providing for the house and so forth. And all of that may have, stayed in your mind, and you may have heard things or seen things growing up that have created an impression in your mind. And instead of growing up to being who you are, you're carrying that burden. So everything in life feels like you have to perform in order to survive. So it keeps you in a mindset of fight or flight. You can't relax and live softly. Why? Because you're always on guard, as if something is going to happen to you, as if someone is going to hurt you or things are going to change so drastically that it will upset your entire life and you won't be able to live. So for some of you, I know that I've talked to people that do well with a coach, because we break things down and take you to a place where you can see the things that you need to, or focus on the things that you want, that the things that are helpful, beneficial, and that will move you forward. Growth, development, and just moving you forward. And subtracting the things that are keeping you back. Why those thoughts? What are your triggers? What is it that's triggering you or keeping you in trigger mode that you stay in survival mode? When you're in survival mode, there's no growth. There's no growth. If you are in survival mode, there is no growth. You can't grow when you're thinking. Some people, they second guess themselves over and over. Overthink, and then you second guess. That's where clarity comes in, because clarity helps you to be swift. You see what is, you know what you don't want, and then what's left, you decide how you're going to deal with that. How are you going to move within that framework? How are you going to move? How are you going to move? Because if if you don't determine what's clarity, what would happen is that you would keep reacting. You react to triggers. You react to what people say or do or how they think about you. You keep reacting instead of simply being, or you respond to life. When someone says something about you, how does it affect you? Sometimes people say things and, in my mind, I'm like, well, that's your opinion, or that doesn't apply to me, and that's fine once you have clarity about that. If it doesn't apply to you, then you can just move on. No explanations, no try to define what it is, no try to correct No, 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 no. If it doesn't apply to you, and that's something that sometimes, we want to explain, we want to defend, you just weaken your worth. When you know who you are, you don't need to go through all of that, trying to explain, trying to defend your point of view. Your point of view is not subject to the understanding of everybody. Who you are, not everyone may understand the way you think. And that's okay. You don't need everyone to understand the way you think. You don't. Why? Is it necessary? Just like if somebody says something, there's just so much going on around us. And you, my friend, we have to filter. You have to filter the words that you hear, the things that you even allow yourself to see. I take a break every now and then. I take a break because I'm responsible for my ear gate and my eye gate. And then I watch the words that I speak because I don't want to spew out negativity either. I have my thoughts, but it's all about you. You have to protect you. You have to do what works for you. And it doesn't matter how it looks, what it looks like, how it sounds, whatever works for you. But first of all, you have to know what it is and what it is that you want. And you allow yourself. It's like I said, when I said that I respect myself for diving into that whole concept about being a spiritual person. And I know right now that could change. But right now, there is nothing spiritual about me. Because my definition of spirituality involves someone else in your thought process. A deity, or like my friends say, I don't, believe in a deity, but I know there's something out there. Well, that's fine for her, but that's not my position. When I say there's something out there, again, the moon comes up, you watch tonight, the moon is going to show up and give us light. Am I grateful? Of course, I'm grateful for that. When I go walking and I feel the sun on my face, on my body, giving me vitamin D, I am grateful for that. When I look at the beautiful big trees in my community, by the canal, by the lake, and I know that the trees, they give us oxygen, I am grateful for that. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not trying to figure out who put the trees there, how does the oxygen work. I can go try to figure it out, but scientifically, we know what I share. The moon gives us light, the sun gives us warmth, the trees oxygen. It's just, there are other things in my life, and it's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. If that's what you want to know, that's okay. It's like someone said, that may be true, that it's that we're a spiritual being having a human experience, but it brings solace to some people, comfort, to think that, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I just had to figure it out for myself, because if that were true, then I would want to know how it works. I know what's true for me. When I say you are a magnificent creative being, I know what that means to me. When I say I am a magnificent creative being, I know that when I get within myself and when I start thinking and seeing and feeling something, I know it's already mine. I know that is alignment. That is the alignment that we've spoken about. That's the alignment that happens. And the mere fact that I have had the thought, I know that it has to happen. There's just no other way. And I am, this is not a belief. This is something that I know for myself, because I see it happen over and over and over again. And I do. It's like I said, one has to be focused and do whatever works for you. My car, it's programmed. The moment I step in my car and touch the start button, I just touch it. I don't have to, put my foot on the brake and touch the start button. The dash lines up, and a female voice comes on and say, "Hello, Cynthia Lennox. You are an amazing woman." And then I say, "Thank you, Mercedes." And then she responds, "You're welcome." And then I back up and I go thinking I'm going to have a wonderful journey, a safe ride wherever I'm going. That works for me. Again, do whatever works for you. Some people have their alarm system in the house that have stuff, when somebody rings the bell or whatever, or there's a motion or somebody comes to the door, it you program it to say whatever you do. What works for you, find out what works for you. This, my friend, this is, as you can tell, I'm so passionate about it. Why? Because it takes you to a place where you can live the life you want unapologetically. You owe no explanation. You make no excuses. You just do whatever you need to do so that your life will be fulfilled. You will flourish. You will flourish. It is your birthright to prosper and to be in health, as your mind, your feelings, and your emotions prospers. It is your birthright. And if you are not living that experience, that's why I'm here. I'm not here to tell you how to do it. I'm just here to remind you that it's your birthright and that you have the ability to go digging and checking. You have the ability to go digging and checking. It all depends on what it is you want. Now, if you're okay with the life you have, then bravo. That's fine. But we are, as humans, we always want more. We always want more peace, more contentment, more money, more whatever. We that's just the way, because why? We are constantly evolving. Our life is evolutionary. We are constantly growing. A 1-year-old baby won't stay 1 year old for a long time. He's constantly growing, learning words, learning to see things, learning to ask questions. And that's why, we call them the terrible twos, because they ask them the questions over and over and over. Why? Because they're growing, they're evolving. Well, guess what? As we mature, we become adults. Sometimes the tendency is to stay in a quagmire, stay in a routine, stay in a life that is lived by default, a life that is on autopilot, routine. You get up, you shower, you make breakfast, you go to work, you put in 8, 9, 10 hours, you come home, you cook dinner or whatever, you eat, you watch a little TV, you go to bed, and it's the same thing over and over and over. That is not why. As a matter of fact, Nudia was cheering today, and she spent she said 10 years in the medical field, and she became so she was a nurse, and she saw the way the seniors were taken care of, and she said, they would come in, they have an ailment, they give them medication, and these medication, they cause side effects, and so they give them more medication to counter the side effect of the 12 medications that they're taking. And it's just a thing. And these seniors that are sick, they don't really have a chance to get well, because they're in a system That's the way the system is. And she said she looked at it, and after 10 years uh, in that environment, and she said she saw her life just go by before her eyes. And she has a partner. She said they sat and had a conversation. She said they sat down and had a conversation, and they decided they didn't want that. I'm not sure what he did, but they decided that they were going to save up some money and move, totally move to a different lifestyle. After a couple of years, they saved enough money that they moved to another to an island. They moved to Puerto Rico, and they're not even from Puerto Rico, but they just and then she shared again. She said that life is so different. She said they have had to learn to just slow down. When you go to a restaurant, she said you can wait 40 minutes before your meal comes. Why? Because it's cooked from scratch. It's not taken out of a freezer and put in a microwave. And she said, they were finished for a while, and it took a while. They're sitting there for 20 minutes waiting for the girl to come by with the bill. And here, they come by, is everything okay? Can I get you something else? Why? Because they need to vacate that table so that someone else can come in, because it's a profitable business. But she says not there. No, 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 no. So when they call the server said, no, you pay at the register over there. So she said they don't rush you at all. They do not rush you. She said they had to rewire their thinking, because in the US, there's a time element when you go out to dinner. If you don't have, whether it's a drink or after dinner, if you don't have like an after dinner drink or a cup of coffee or dessert or whatever, they are, and you've got to get it. They are ready for you to go. And she was just saying how wonderful that mindset, that lifestyle is. Then she was talking about the driving. She said, people drive a little crazy over here, but one of the things they do is they yield the right of way. They yield to you the right of way. And that's something that is done all the time. They yield the right of way. I don't know what town she's in, but the point is she had to readjust. She, in her mind, again, this is someone that exercised clarity in her life. She determined what is, focus on what she wanted, determine what is no longer going to work. Fortunately, when you have a partner that can be in unison with you, with your way of thinking, and you can make decisions together. And so that's great, because there's no tug of war. And once she was able to subtract that which did not work, she realized that she lived in survival mode. By then she was an empty nester. She had kids, the kids were grown on their own and so forth. So she didn't have that situation to deal with. But she went through a process of subtracting what no longer works in your life. Get rid of it. Stop, think. As a matter of fact, I was sharing that with my husband today. I said, you know what? We need to go through that. We need to go through our house, and in our cupboards and all that, we have all these fancy dishes and things like that, a whole bunch that we don't use, and it's taking up space. Why? When I think of that, and when I was thinking of all these things, I'm like, we need to get rid of it, just like we get rid of clothes. If we haven't used it in like a year or so, we get rid of it. Send it to the Goodwill or whatever organization that you use. Just get rid of it. Make room for the new. And you start subtract. It's like a cleansing. You start subtracting from your life, getting rid of the old stuff. Relationships that no longer, you know, no longer flourish. You find relationship that you don't have anything to share anymore. You just have to you have to modify it. When I say get rid of it, you just modify. You don't spend time in situations that, and this is so radical, but you have to do it because it's for the life that you desire. It's you or staying in survival mode. And that's not what I'm not here. I'm here to open your awareness, because sometimes we don't even think of it that way. We don't even think of it that way. We just say, well, that's just life. And life is not, people say like life is not fair, and we don't know what's going to happen, and so forth. And this doesn't mean that life is perfect. It just means that you are exercising your birthright. If you keep it in your mind that you are entitled to, just like you're entitled to oxygen. You don't think of oxygen. Oxygen is something you breathe in, in carbon monoxide you breathe out. You just breathe, you just live. You don't need to be in survival mode, trying to make things work and trying to just make ends meet, overthinking, second guessing yourself, not knowing, protecting yourself, being cautious, being hesitant, procrastinating, being afraid, worrying. All of that is survival mode. Pause for a second, my friend. Pause for a second and smile for 5 seconds, and you will see how you will have that rush of dopamine in your system. You can, when you smile, it's because you're thinking of something else. Or something pleasant. When I smile, it's because I'm thinking of something pleasant. Either someone or a situation. I'm thinking of someone, or something pleasant. It quiets the noise. And it really helps us to focus on the things that matters. Whether it's your health, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your finances, whether it's your some people go through trying to find their purpose in life, their meaning, whatever it is that makes you happy. That's your purpose. Your purpose is pleasure. It's pleasure. And you need to understand that unapologetically. And don't apologize for wanting things. There's nothing wrong with that. You know your worth. You know your value. You know the things that you are entitled to by virtue of being alive. And again, you do what works for you. For me, I do what works for me. The point is, it works. It works. I need to see it, touch it, feel it. And that works. And the more I dive into things and question things, the more I realize there's so much more to learn. There is so much more life has to offer. That's why I don't, for me, certain things, like I said earlier, the moon is there. Whoever hung the moon, I don't spend time trying to figure that out. That's just me. I don't spend time trying to decipher somebody else's uh, perspective of what's written in a book. I don't spend time trying to do that because that's somebody else's perspective. And I'm not going to try to just imagine that. And I used to do that, spending time trying to decipher, trying to get clarity on this. Oh, no, it meant this. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, no, it meant this is what it means. And then somebody else comes and says, no, this is what it means. And then we have, I'm talking about the Bible. Then we have like, I don't know how many thousands of different translations. Why? Because it's the opinion, the take, and the views of someone else. What about your views? What about your opinion? What about your manuscript? What about your own blueprint? That's where your focus ought to be, my friend. Focus on your own blueprint to create the life that you desire so that you can enjoy your life unapologetically. You deserve it. You deserve a good life. You deserve a life of abundance, a life that is flourishing, and you not live in survival mode. Sometimes we don't even recognize that it's survival mode. Oh, I've got to take care of this. I got to take care of that. I got to take care of this person, that person, do this, that, the other. And you're just in survival mode constantly. And you don't recognize it. But pause for a second, my friend, and focus. Decide what matters. Determine what does not matter and what's left. Then you decide how you're going to move in that direction to make things better for you. I'm going to leave you with that so that you can sup on that, my friend. Every Thursday, we meet right here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, if you can't join me then, see right here, well, over here. You can stream the show on either LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube 24/7. If you wish to drop me a note, go to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com and drop me a note. Whatever thing that you're, in your mind or you want me to share, you just mention it and I will hone in on it and share it. In the meantime, I'm going to see you next week, same time, same place, right here. Have a phenomenal weekend. Over here in my neck of the woods, they promise rain, and I'm okay with that. I'm definitely okay with little showers and stuff like that. One of the things that we are learning or that we have been enjoying is just, or at least we did last weekend, we had no plans, nothing scheduled, nothing, at all. And we just stayed home and chill. But in the afternoon, we did get up and we went out to dinner. And we enjoy that. So that was good. We went out and we had a nice meal. We came back home and continued to chill. And that's becoming one of our things. I talk a lot about the soft life. Well, that's part of it. But whatever works for you, that is what you do. My friend, again, next week, same time, same place. And in the meantime, you have a phenomenal weekend. Ciao.